welcome to the Amateur Skeptics Podcast, show number 39. With me tonight, Eric Robbins.
Hello.
Ian Brazy-Cannon.
Greetings, one and all.
Kimberly.
Hi, everybody.
And Mac.
Podcasting from the hot wastes of Lakewood.
Excellent. And I'm your host, Brian. I sometimes forget to say that. I introduce everybody else and forget me. How's everybody doing tonight?
It's been a very good Monday.
Spiffy.
Spiffy?
Not bad. Not bad.
That's okay. I often forgot who you are, too.
Oh, I'm fine, but not dandy. George Carlin. Melvin?
Yep.
Really?
I recognized it.
All right. So, we've got some announcements. What's coming up locally for us, Kimberly?
Well, we've got two events coming up this weekend that I wanted to let our listeners know about. They're going to actually be held at the same time in approximately the same place. The first is one that I guess I'm hosting. Brian, I'm kind of still counting on you to be co-hosting.
You know what? I signed up today. I didn't realize that I had not signed up. I am coming. I will be there to help you.
Good.
Yes.
So we're going to be doing a event we're calling Ask an Atheist. So I think we talked about this on an earlier podcast because last month we did an attempt at this out at Commons Park in Denver. And the idea behind it is to kind of set up someplace out in the public and invite the public to ask us, the atheists, questions, whatever they want to know. Our thoughts on different topics, I guess. And the idea behind it is to, kind of normalize us, get us some public outreach, let people know we're pretty regular folk, what we really do believe in as opposed to what we're often told we must obviously believe in, and maybe to generate some really great discussions out there. So we're doing that this coming Saturday. That's the 30th, right? I believe so. Yes. Saturday the 30th. We're going to be meeting at My Brother's Bar for lunch beforehand for anybody who's interested in that. And then the park is just really across the street. And we're going to set up a little table at 16th and Raven, make a sign or two, and see what happens. This is a bit of an experiment for me and everybody else as far as I know. I don't have a lot of experience going out on the street and identifying as an atheist and interacting with the public.
No, and I don't either. But I think it's important because of one of the reasons that you brought up right at the beginning is what we're told to believe. If you're an atheist, you believe this. If you're an atheist, you hate God. If you're an atheist, you plug in negative.
What did the church ever do to you to make you hate God? I've been told
exactly. That. Yeah. So, yeah. So it can't just be that there's no empirical evidence. No. You hate him for some reason or whatever. So I think these are important. So very good.
So we'll put the link to the meetup group. I think we can do that right on the website.
Yep.
And going on at the same time, just announced apparently a few minutes ago because I just found it there. The Atheists for Humanity, as you remember from our last show, our friend Eric Meir is going to be hosting a intro to volleyball session. So it's going to be a charity event and an outdoor activity. It's going to be going on at about the same time at the same park. He's going to set up a couple of nets and invite people to come on out, and he's asking for like a donation of like $10, and that'll go to Atheists for Humanity. And he loves the hell out of volleyball. So he's going to, help teach people how to play, maybe get a little, game going there. And it'll be nice. If nobody wants to talk to us, we can walk on over and play some game. If somebody needs a break from volleyball and wants to talk it out with somebody, it might be really nice. So that's another one that's going to be going on the same day. So I thought we'd give him a little plug on what he's doing too.
Yeah, and remember, if you can't go play volleyball, you can still go to the website Atheists for Humanity and donate through them.
Very nice, yeah.
Yep.
And we'll probably need cheerleaders too. I mean, atheist cheerleaders are awesome. So come out even if you don't want to play or you don't want to talk. Just come out. I think there'll be a lot of just people talking to each other and having a good time. That's what last time devolved into.
Yeah.
It's great.
What's that? Ian, you're going to wear a skirt?
He wants to be that kind of cheerleader.
I don't look good in a skirt. You saw me in a skirt at Mike's wedding.
No. Well, it was technically a kilt, but you know what? I mean, I'd like to see you in a prom dress with some pumps. That's all I'm saying.
Well, if he shows up in a skirt, we're going to have to shave him because, shave the cheerleader, shave the world.
Speaking of cross-dressing, on the Atheist Experience, Matt Dillahunty last week did the Atheist Experience in drag. They had they were doing a challenge to raise money for Camp Quest, and it was PZ Myers and then the Austin Atheists, and whoever won more money was going to do something. And Matt said that if they raised more money, then I just forgot his name. Anyway, if they raised more money, that he would dress up in drag and go on the show and do the show in drag, and he did that. So
yeah, I actually watched that one on YouTube, and he did a great job. Had a great little conversation in the beginning about how it affected him, and that was interesting. Getting obviously a man who's not generally a cross-dresser, how it felt to do that, and the reactions he got from it. And then to his credit, went and did the show. I love their show. I listen to it all the time. And did it as if it was just a normal day. So good for him.
Yeah,
it's definitely one to check out.
Yep. All right,
so,
moving on.
Yeah, so we got to, I figure since we are mostly a local podcast, I know we've got Eric out in California, but not going to let that stop us.
No.
Since we're Colorado homegrown. There's also another one I wanted to let people know about with the Mile High Skeptics meetup group. Ari Armstrong is going to be speaking at Scruffy Murphy's. Never been there, but it's downtown, it looks like, on the values of Harry Potter. This was apparently on the e-Skeptic a week or so ago, and he'll be talking live. So I'm going to try to go to that. I think that I love Harry Potter. Saw the last movie on Friday, and that was great. But that's a little off topic. But
we specialize in going off topic.
We should probably have the Harry Potter wrap up later.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's going on August 1st. And so anybody interested in that is at 7 p.m., like I said, at Scruffy Murphy's. And we'll put the website out there for that. And the last thing I've got on the local news is that they're going to be doing another Skeptic Camp at the end of August. It's scheduled for the 27th down in Colorado Springs. They're going to do another Skeptic Camp.
Now,
so
do you know who's putting
too.
this Skeptic Camp on?
I know that Reed and Rich Orman are involved, but I think it might be some people down in Colorado Springs, which I don't know that I'm going to be able to go. I'm kind of doubting it at this point, but I'd love to just to give support, because that's behind the lines. You know, being a skeptic down in Colorado Springs. That's got to be a tough gig.
Yeah. Well, so right now, the speaker list is growing. Looks like they've got 11 speakers. Of course, if you have not had a chance to go see Brian and Baxter, they're going to be there.
Yeah.
And Skeptic Camp's worth it. It's a fun experience. You get to meet other skeptics, get to hear their views, and interact with them. And it costs nothing. You can't beat that. Yeah,
this sounds interesting. Dr. Karen Stolz now is going to be talking about making up history. And of course, the Lizard, Dr. Morgan, the Lizard, Morgan Levy will be there. The neuroscience of belief. That should be interesting. He always has a good talk. It always has a lot of sexual content involved, you know. He does. It always seems to drift off into that area. So, but it's always a good talk. He always has something good.
Right. You say that as if that was a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing. I shouldn't say that, but I imagine that there are some people who might end up being offended by that. So, disclaimer, right?
And it looks like they've got 2 rooms going now. They're still filling up a few spots. So that's another great thing for anybody who hasn't been to Skeptic Camp before. It's put on by local people for local people. So if you have a topic you want to discuss, Brian and I have both presented last time at the one in Boulder, and I thought both of them were great. I might be biased, but but if anyone's got a topic they're interested, that's what Skeptic Camp is all about. You come in, you present, you get a little, looks like a half-hour slot for what they're doing here, and you don't need to be a professional. You just talk about what you want to talk about, be open to questions from the audience, and they're usually, I can't think of any one of them where I've been bored. They're usually fun and exciting and things you wouldn't normally think or study about. So
yeah, looking at this, there's even Stuart Robbins, whose talk this year was excellent.
We like him.
Yeah, Nator is going to be down there talking. I had a friend of ours.
She's got one. Great.
Yeah, she's got one down there. So
the Pyramid of Poo. We might need to have her on. We might need to hear more about this.
Absolutely. I'm sure she will. She'll come talk to us about poo.
Go check it out. I think that'll be fun. And that's the skeptics seem to slow down a little bit in the summer. I guess we're off vacationing and stuff. But I thought we could use just a couple of minutes at the beginning of a podcast to let people know what's going on, because there's usually a bunch of great things.
Yep. Absolutely. Yep.
Well, Kimberly, I see you're going to that Values of Harry Potter one.
Yes.
Anybody else thinking about going?
I'm thinking about it. We'll see.
I'm toying with it too.
I'm more likely to end up at Skeptic Camp, though. I will try.
Skeptic Camp is saying there's no slots left.
For people to come?
They want you to sign up at skepticcamp.org.
Yeah, you have to go to
the... okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many people they have room
They've already got 42 people signed up, but I don't see anything that says how much space they have. I'm sure they'll update it if it starts getting dangerous, but I wouldn't worry about it. I'd sign up as soon as you can so they know what to expect. And I think they'll. We had about 80 something, I think, in Boulder.
About 80, yeah.
Yeah, so we have to just certainly make sure that Colorado Springs doesn't beat us. I think that's really the only thing.
So you're saying I shouldn't go?
I don't know. Like I said, I'm just getting back from vacation that weekend, so I don't think I'll be able to
that might
scramble
be rough.
off down there. But if it comes up, I might. We'll see.
All right. There you go.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Are we done with announcements now?
I think
so.
That's all I got.
Ready to move on? We have a science article in there. Ian's going to tell us how if you're not African, you're a Neanderthal. Okay. Am I overstating this?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Okay. Whew.
Okay. Well, with more and more genetic discovery happening every day, it's not too surprising we're finding stuff like this out. We have so much more information out there to really trace the human genetics. So this story definitely fit with, more and more discoveries we're finding. And I'm waiting for it to load. Here we go. So the title of the story is Confirmed. All non-African people are part Neanderthal. What's the site here?
It's io9.com?
Yeah, io9.com. And, the writer of this particular article is Alasdair Wilkin. Basically, he talks about, the evidence has been mounting, and it goes into the history of how originally it was thought Neanderthals and Homo sapiens stayed apart and were separate. But as they were looking in it, apparently we were very closely genetically related, genetically close enough to the Neanderthals to be able to crossbreed. And apparently, as humans spread out of Africa, they encountered Neanderthals and apparently did crossbreed. And they were saying everywhere, even in like Australia, there is Neanderthal genetics in the native Australians. So, however the spreading of these genetics went, it was worldwide practice once we left Africa.
My understanding from other articles that I read is that some of the genes specifically that they believe that we got from the Neanderthal was like the genes for red hair.
I don't believe this article goes into
detail. It doesn't go into detail about the genes, but yeah, this has been coming for a while, and there's been a couple of different studies that I think have come back with the same conclusion.
So and it's part of evolution. What happened to Neanderthals? Basically, they became us.
Right.
And that's a question that come up. What happened to all these mysterious different things? How'd they die off? Well, quite likely, they never died off. They just bred and
became something else.
Yeah.
Well, we bred them out of existence.
Yeah. And that fits with evolution. However the genetics work, the Homo sapien genetics were, for the most part, apparently the dominant ones, and the Neanderthal traits weren't. So when the Neanderthals and the Homo sapiens intermixed, the Neanderthal genetics just started to fade away because they were not the dominant ones. But they're still there to some degree.
Well, you go back to our ancestor that we share with, like, the chimpanzee, and you can see they're pretty sure that even as we diverged species, that we still interbred for a while before we completely diverged.
And that's one thing a lot of the creationists don't understand is how that level of evolution works. They think, you have brand new species that just comes into existence, and that's how it works. No.
Well, no, they didn't just come into existence, Ian. God made them.
I was confused by this just because, to your point of as the species kind of differentiate, you eventually lose the ability to interbreed. But I thought the whole definition of species was a group that could interbreed, and basically anything outside of species could not. So I mean, I don't quite understand the science of
there's
that halfway point.
Right, and
Eric,
because technically we're all apes, right? But not all apes can interbreed.
Let's get Eric to chime
please,
in here.
Eric. Yeah.
In my evolutionary biology class, I think we learned 3 or 4 different definitions of species, and some are based on morphology. And the primarily used one is the can interbreed and have a viable offspring. So from that point of view, then yes, Neanderthal and human would be the same species, probably different subspecies. But the way I've always thought about it is the term species, any term that we want to use, genus or family or something, these are all boxes we're trying to fit. You know, we have this box and, okay, here's nature, and okay, everything works fine most of the time, but sometimes things just don't want to fit in our boxes. Coyotes and dogs and wolves are all capable of interbreeding with viable offspring, and they're all separate species currently accepted.
Right. So,
right.
Don't they have the same issue? So we have we're Homo, and what was the genus before Homo?
My understanding. Hold on a second. Am I correct, Eric, in saying that Homo sapiens and Homo sapiens sapiens and Homo sapiens neanderthalensis are the species we're talking about, correct?
Yes, I've seen them being listed as subspecies. I've also seen them being listed as separate species.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd always thought they were a separate species.
I
thought that was the common understanding of it. And again, just to point out, I think it's awesome that science marches on, and finding out that we're wrong about something doesn't destroy the entire thing. It helps.
Well,
that's also kind of the misconceptions that are out there. And even you, a skeptic, didn't have all the information. And that's one of the problems with the idea of evolution. So many people lack so much more information than that. And they don't understand how all the pieces put together. They look at something like this article, and to them it's completely foreign language. It's like, wait a minute, what are they talking about? None of this makes sense because what they've been taught of evolution lacks all the real details on how it works.
Right, but and all the lines are kind of gray because there is no fine line. There's no one transitional fossil, if you will. It's just a continuation of things changing and evolving, and so the lines are gray. The line between when we became Homo and what we were prior to that, these are the kinds of things that biologists argue over. About where those lines are, and it's very hard to create those boxes.
Right, and this article shows that the line really isn't there.
Well, there is no definite line. It's all gray middles, if you will.
Yep. Even now, we're probably gray middle.
Well, sure. We're a transitional form into something else. Sure. We're a fairly stable form, though. I think.
Seems like it.
Yeah.
Some of us.
Until the mutants take over.
So, and Ray Heinemann says that skeptics are mutants.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I know this isn't new. It's just the scope of time just absolutely stuns me all the time. A 20,000-year overlap is, in evolutionary terms, considered a blink of an eye, and we don't have far less than half of that as what we consider recorded history.
Sure.
It just puts it really into perspective, doesn't it?
It's like a tenth of that.
So this is implying, though, that the Cro-Magnon skull that we found in France is actually of African origin. That species is of African origin.
We're all of African origin. We're all Africans.
Except those of us who are Neanderthals.
Well, even
Neanderthals started from Africa.
Oh, yeah.
But they moved out
before.
The Neanderthals had moved out of Africa before we did.
And then we met back up again, us as in Homo sapiens and Neanderthals, after we left Africa. So they went off, did their own thing, really kind of, I guess, developed more into a subspecies, although, like we're saying, not completely, because there is still interbreeding going on. But then the groups, I guess, because we're also talking about not very large populations, isn't that right?
Well, one thing this article I don't like about it is it says that for that sequence to show up for such a diversity of people that it suggests there was a lot of inbreeding. What really needed to happen is the first group that left probably went to the Middle East and probably encountered some Neanderthals there. They interbred, and then everyone spread out. Didn't require a whole lot of different events, just needed.
Oh, I see. So, because it just spread from that one position.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So there's a lot of supposition in here, and all we really know is that there's a sequence that takes place in non-African peoples that we recognize from Neanderthal.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right.
That's
Interesting.
very interesting. Yeah. I mean, I'd love to know more about it because it really does open a lot of questions and a better understanding of where we come from. I'm also really surprised that they're so, so insistent that there's absolutely no Neanderthal genetics in people who are, I guess, who are from and stayed in sub-Saharan South or Africa, right? Because again, when you think about it, like you say, the Neanderthals, we all started in the same place, and with a common ancestor, and then moved out from there, right?
It's interesting.
And again, I realize this happens over thousands of years. So.
Africa is interesting because it actually has more genetic diversity than the rest of the world in a lot of ways. You can take people from two different places in Africa, and their genus may be further apart than you are from either of them.
Now, I'm looking at some of the comments on this article, and apparently our confusion on this is not uncommon.
Mm.
So it's fairly clear that the article itself is maybe not as comprehensive as it could be.
Sure.
Oh, and that's the main thing that keeps hurting evolution is it is confusing, and the people that are too confused by it just don't want to try and learn anything more. And they're comfortable with the creationism crap, and that's all they want. So you mentioned evolution, they don't understand it. They don't want to understand it. It is too much. There's so much to it. We don't fully understand it, but that doesn't mean it's not true. And that's the problem. Just because it's confusing and you don't understand it, doesn't make sense to you, doesn't mean it's not true.
It's a common thing, though, to defend them, to want an answer and to feel uncomfortable with, I don't know. And it's much more comforting for them to say, listen, we have this book. It was given to us by our creator. It has all the answers.
Yeah. Oh, easy answers. People do very much for the easy answers.
And to me, that's lazy, but I still understand why they would take that position.
Yeah.
All right,
we're ready to talk about water?
All right, let's talk about water. I today would like to talk to you about alkaline water. Anybody know what alkaline water is? Class, raise your hands.
Brian, will you tell us what alkaline water is?
I would love to tell you what alkaline water is.
Isn't it true water?
Well, it depends on which site you're looking at. There's a couple of different things going on. So here's what alkaline water is. Water has a pH of 7, which is neutral. Alkaline water has a pH of 8 or higher. So what they're doing is that they're taking water and they're making it alkaline in some way. And there's apparently several different ways to do this. Now, this site said use a distiller, use a water ionizer, or add an alkaline ingredient to the water. And most of these sites say that they're filtering the water and then using the ionizer on the water to make this alkaline water. But why would you want to do that, you ask, right? You do ask, right?
Why would you want to do that?
Okay, good. Because of all of the benefits that you can get from drinking alkaline water. And I'm going to read off just a few of them to you.
What sort of benefits would those be?
Well, yeah. Oh, I'm so glad you asked. It reduces stress. It reduces the amount of water needed for cooking. It's a strong antioxidant. It helps you hydrate better. It helps with heartburn, indigestion, prevents acidosis, helps detoxify the body. It's good for weight loss, boosts energy, prevents allergies, prevents free radical damage, reduces excessive mucus, promotes a healthy heart, increases brain function, reduces cholesterol, decreases blood pressure, promotes healthy cell regeneration, helps deliver oxygen to tissues, and prevents degenerative diseases such as cardiovascular, diabetes and obesity, liver and kidney disease, cancer in any form, neurological diseases, immune system dysfunctionalities, premature aging, hormonal problems, and imbalances.
Is this a...
Wow.
Many of our people report such effects.
Yeah, absolutely. So so these are all the things that this does. But here is the reason that this is important, because of a disease called acetosis. And acetosis occurs when your blood pH becomes acidic. There are two types of acetosis. There is respiratory acetosis and molecular or metabolic acetosis. Sorry. And so respiratory acetosis is a buildup of carbon dioxide from inefficient breathing caused by chest deformities, chest injuries, chest muscle weakness, chronic lung disease, overuse of sensitive drugs. The metabolic acetosis happens when there is too much acid being produced by the kidneys and can't remove enough acid. So you get a buildup of lactic acid. And this can be caused by alcohol. Cancer can cause this, liver failure, low blood sugar, and medicines such as cellulites. Yeah. Anyway, and also I heard somebody talking about glucophage can cause acetosis. And those are all real things that can happen to the body from too much acid. So they're promoting a more alkaline body. Here's the problem. There's another condition called alkatosis, and there's respiratory and metabolic alkatosis. The respiratory is caused by fever, being at a high altitude, lack of oxygen, liver disease, lung disease, and then metabolic, extreme loss of potassium, extreme loss of chloride. So there is just as many, the effects of being too acidic or too alkaline are both bad. So I was reading about this, and the reason that I listened to a couple of paranormal podcasts, and one of them is just full of ads, and the ads are always for bullshit products. I mean, you can listen to an ad on there, and every one of them you can go, that's bullshit. That's bullshit. I mean, it's obvious, but when look at all the things I just told you that alkaline water will do for you, and then look at the diseases that can be caused by acetosis. Those two things in combination make people go, oh, maybe I should be doing this. Don't you think?
It's an awfully large number of diseases to be caused by quote-unquote acetosis.
Right. Well, the acetosis ones are much more specific that I read when I read the specific causes. But here's the thing: is that being overacidic can, be hard on your kidneys and liver, and it can be hard on your body.
Okay, I'm going to ask one really important question about this alkaline water.
Mm-hmm.
Does it occur in nature?
It could if the water became ionized. Yes.
So not likely?
Not likely. Well, that's not
Okay.
true. If you had a body of water that had a lot of a lot of like calcium in it, it would probably be alkaline.
From what I remember about chemistry, which was a few years ago, mind you, from what I remember about chemistry, we get water molecules because the hydrogen molecules each have two. It's the way they plug up naturally.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's the way that the hydrogen molecules connect to the water molecules that make it form H2O.
Okay. If you have pure water, which is primarily, H2O, 2 hydrogen, 1 oxygen.
Right.
It does have a tendency to dissociate and ionize and become, 1 hydrogen ion and a hydroxide ion, which is hydrogen plus HO minus. But the reverse happens much, much quicker. And so the hydrogen molecules and the HO minus want to combine to create H2O, and that happens much more rapidly. So you might have an occasional combination of H++ HO negative. That can happen, but because it wants to combine so much more rapidly, you're going to have like 1 in a million Or no, 1 in a billion. One out of every. It says 2 out of every billion H2O molecules will be H plus O negative. HO
Yeah,
negative.
it's H2O is a pretty stable combination.
Right, it is. And you cannot create this by running it across the electrical charge like they say they're going to. There's not enough ions to do that. If you could do that, the water would conduct a current if there was enough ions in there to do it, but there's not. It doesn't conduct a current unless you add something like salt or something like that adds ions to it to create that current.
Mm-hmm.
So these water ionizers that they're selling cannot physically do what they're claiming. And even if they could do it as it was coming out of the tap, it would revert back to the way it was so much quicker that it wouldn't matter anyway. You would have to physically strip out the hydrogen in order to make the water alkaline. But if you could do that easily, you would have a pool of hydrogen that you could sell for hydrogen fuel cells if it was cheap to do. But it's not cheap to do that. So yeah, so ultimately, you cannot ionize water. It's just not going to happen. And the other thing is that if you had more minerals in it, you probably could ionize it, right? If you had more minerals and stuff in it, but they are filtering it before they ionize it, so they're taking out anything in there that would possibly allow you to ionize it.
This sounds to me very much like a load of dingo's kidneys.
Right. So
here's another thing I have a problem with too.
Really?
And this
another problem?
Other problems. I have other problems.
I thought this was so. I thought I had this one lock stock. I was sure that alkaline water was good.
Lock, stock, and 2 smoking barrels.
That's it. Yeah.
They're talking about acids, and of course nobody wants to have acids. Acids are bad. People look at acids and go, okay, acids are bad. Acids will burn you.
Mm-hmm.
But would you rather be burned by a strong acid, or would you rather be burned by a strong alkaline?
Right. It doesn't matter. It's still a burn.
Still a burn. And, lye is the opposite end of the spectrum. Lye is a strong alkaline, and it will burn you just as bad as a strong acid will.
Right. So
acids are good.
Yes,
we would starve without acids.
We need amino acids. We need citric acid.
So now here's the
stomach acid.
Yes. Now here's the piece I have not told you. And when I'm talking about acidosis and alitosis, I am talking about blood pH. And so to get these conditions, your blood must be either have a high pH or low pH in order to come up with these conditions. And it can happen. But your body is extremely efficient at regulating your blood pH. Now, every one of these sites wants to tell us that it's not, and that we're all acidic, and that, that this is a huge problem, but it's not. And it depends on the site that I read. I got a couple of different ways in which this works, but primarily, we breathe off carbon dioxide. We are breathing out, so our lungs regulate our acid. So if you hold your breath, your blood will quickly become more acidic, and you'll feel uncomfortable, and you might even pass out from that. If you hyperventilate, your blood will become more alkaline, and you'll feel uncomfortable, and you might even pass out.
Yep, but the wonderful thing about it is when you pass out, you start breathing normally again, and your blood goes back to normal.
Right. And so the other way in which your body regulates your pH is through your kidneys. And so when you urinate, you give off ammonia, which is getting rid of extra alkaloids. So I don't care how much, even if alkaline water was actually more alkaline, no matter how much of it you drink, you're never going to adjust your blood pH. Unless there's something else wrong with you, such as you're not breathing properly, you can't really adjust you can't adjust your blood pH by what you eat. You can't adjust your urine pH by what you eat.
Yeah. But by what you said here, if you drown in alkaline water, then your blood will become less acidic because you're getting it through the lungs.
I think by that point it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Whatever you want to do at that point, right? Yes. I don't want to test that either way. So, but the problem with these products is that when you go and read these sites, they don't cite there's not a single medical study cited. And they'll give you all of the information about all the things that acid can do to you. But yet they don't tell you that it doesn't matter how much you drink, you can't adjust your blood pH. Besides the fact that if you do happen to have heartburn, are you going to go get alkaline water or are you going to go get Tums?
Well, clearly, according to this, we should be getting alkaline water.
Okay, but here's the other people. The other people sell acidic water. And I had to be careful not to get distracted while I was doing this research because I could have got led off into live water, acidic water, and so on, and a whole bunch of other things, that are associated with this. But the people that are promoting acidic water are saying that we are too alkaline, and what's happening is that we have heartburn because we're taking all of these alkaline-based products, and what's happening is that our body is overproducing acid to make up for all of the alkaline that we're consuming in our stomach and gut.
Which technically can sort of happen.
Sure.
I mean, if you take in too much alkaline stuff, your stomach will overproduce acid, and yes, you can get heartburn from it.
Right. Sure. That can actually happen. But once again,
it's not going to change your blood pH.
It's not going to change your blood pH. And if you're having a lot of these kinds of issues, you should be seeing your doctor anyway and not looking for these crazy products. I have a couple of links in here to an ionizer and the True Water stuff and the pH ion booster and on and on and on. But they're not really, when you read these products, they are not being very clear as to what they're actually doing. They tell you that you're too acidic, and then they sell you alkaline water, or some expensive ionizer.
And when you say expensive, I mean some of them are crazy. They're a couple of $1,000.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, isn't it?
Hey, once more, we're in the wrong profession.
I think that the only safe way to do this, really, is to buy the expensive alkaline water and to buy the expensive acid water and mix them together to form water.
Yeah.
Or make an explosion.
I don't understand how these people are getting away with still having these products available. They're making claims, but they're very careful about the claims that they make. But even claiming that they can ionize water to make it more alkaline is a claim. And since it's not chemically possible for them to do this, shouldn't these products be taken off the market?
Well, one of the sites was explaining this that they use pyramid schemes, and so they're not making any great claims themselves. It's the people they have selling them for them.
Right, they do a lot of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just it's disingenuous marketing schemes is what it is.
I love the site for True Water. You click on the link, the benefits of acid water, and it says, while you cannot and should not drink acid water, it does have important benefits.
Oh, right. Yes.
I think it's like what you mentioned, though, earlier about, people wanting the easy answers and stuff. I mean, if all of this stuff was true, or, you can't read these sites without being like, I've got that symptom. I'm totally lacking energy every freaking day.
I know,
and
right?
I can't keep my weight down no matter what the hell I do. And I do exercise too much. And all of these things. And if somebody was just like, Kim, you could spend $4,000. You'd be thin the rest of your life. You could eat as many Doritos as you want. You don't have to exercise anymore. I would love to buy that product. Unfortunately, I'm kind of not believing it exists, but I can understand why other people are like, if this could really do it, that's worth that money.
I know.
Kim, I guarantee you that if you went on a diet of nothing but alkaline water, you would lose weight and, eventually vital signs.
But they make it sound like all I gotta do is just, trade out my horribly poisonous bottled water for this, $6,000 tap and not do anything else, and have all these great benefits. And like you say, every time you see these things where they cure everything, all forms of cancer, I mean, just so ridiculous a claim. If you understood what cancer was, you'd know there could not be a single cure for it, but boy, you get why people want it.
Yeah,
they
of
want
course.
that panacea cure.
Isn't the maintenance on that $6,000 tap kind of a problem? Don't the moving parts on that have to be oiled with special snake oil?
I'm sure.
The way that I got turned on to this, man, I'm not finding the site. Is this it? Nope, that's not it. I better stop that now. All right. I gotta find that site. I found a site, that talked about glutathione, and they sell this One World whey powder, and whey, it's a powder made from milk, and it had this list of these 5 things that you can do to be healthy. But doing all those, you still may not be healthy without your whey powder. And they go they show how their whey powder is better than everybody else's whey powder, and on and on and on. And I thought, well, I'd like to address all of these claims that they're making before I get to the whey powder. So the first one that I started looking at on their site was the alkaline water. And I've got to find the page again, because there's a list that I want to go through, and so I'll hit the next one and the next one. So I'll prepare another report for the next thing that's on their list of the 5 things that you need to do to be healthy. And then we'll finally get down and see if we can break down the whey powder as well. So that's kind of where I'm heading here.
Hey, Brian, a quick question. I asked you a little while back, and I don't know if you have an answer for this yet, but this stuff is One World whey, and I asked you if it had anything to do with Dr. Bronner's soaps.
I don't know, and no, but it has this glutathione in it.
Okay, because the Dr. Bronner's soaps, if you've ever read one of those bottles or read part of one of those bottles, you know that there is a manifesto on every bottle.
Oh, yeah. I know that we have.
And I love that manifesto.
That soap works, too.
Oh, it's good soap. But there's this huge manifesto all about One World religion and all of his different religious views that he had.
Right.
And the One World things keeps coming up over and over and over.
This
again.
goes back to a Dr. Mark Hyman, and
Okay.
And I know that he's legit because he's been on Dr. Oz. And he is promoting the glutathione, which may be good. I don't know. I mean, I haven't quite gotten there. Like I say, I started with the alkaline water. So fun stuff. I mean, it was fun to go through it, but man, there was just, well, you guys saw all the links, and I didn't even put all the links in the document for all the stuff that I read to put this all together. And I had a lot of fun. Every single claim, putting together this list of claims that the alkaline water is good for, and I didn't get everything. There's more that they say that is good for, but it is a collection from multiple sites.
Yeah, it's amazing that people do this, and I've heard the people who get sucked into there's victims everywhere.
Yes,
it's not just the people who buy it; it's also the people who sell it. They're usually so deep in dead, really, that they're desperate to get the next level of people to sell to, so that they can keep their head above water and not go bankrupt over this stuff. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
And then, like you say, you can't argue with the people who insist that, I don't care what the science says. I know it affects me positively. I know I've seen all this difference and stuff. And you're never going to convince them that their little anecdotes or their data mining, or their remembering the hits and forgetting the misses, or not really getting what the actual connection is. You're never going to convince any of them.
Right. But I did learn a lot of actually good stuff by reading this. I did learn about acetosis and halitosis and the connection with diabetes and and how the glucophage, that some people that have taken that have had issues with acetosis. And so there's been some interesting connections that way.
Now, see, on this site you put in here about acids and bases, I'm finding something kind of interesting. It's actually saying that an ammonia solution is actually less caustic in terms of base than a soapy water solution. That's interesting to me.
I don't know. Yeah. There's a lot. I mean, I used a lot of references here, and unfortunately I don't even have all the ones here listed. But I got the majority of what I wanted to hit.
But the liquid drain cleaner that they give as an example of a 14 pH, that's lye.
Okay.
That's almost pure lye in a liquid drain cleaner.
Yeah, and we know that that's bad, especially when you add fat.
Mm.
All right. So I think I don't know. I feel like I covered that pretty well.
Yeah, good research.
All right.
And now we have another thing to tease you on when we want to get you all riled up.
Yes, it's one
talk
more
about
thing,
ionized
right?
water.
Oh, man. That's the problem with doing this podcast. Is it's a list of things that irritate me.
Look, there's another button on his chest.
That's right. Look at that button. All right. So, female weightlifter fights to compete in her religious garb. This was actually kind of neat. Ian?
Yeah, this was
Yes.
an interesting article. Well, one of the things I found most interesting was it goes against stereotype. Stereotypically, you would not picture a Muslim woman as a weightlifter.
No.
So, it's an article off of MSNBC.com. Muslim weightlifter fights to compete in, I don't even try to pronounce that, hijabi.
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 Good job.
So basically, where's her name? Kosam Abdallah is apparently a Muslim weightlifter. She can deadlift 240 pounds. So, quite impressive. And she was wanting to weightlift competitively. But the problem is her religion said she had to keep her arms and legs covered. And competitive weightlifting said, no, you can't do that. You have to wear the proper shorts and such.
Well, and there's a reason why.
Yes, well, yeah. I understood there were some reasons, but she did actually get it changed. The last update I had seen on this. But so she was putting up a fight, saying, "Listen, I want to compete, but my religion says I can't go out in public in that kind of an outfit." And I agree with you, Mac. There are some reasons as to why they had the dress code the way it was.
Right.
But she fought, and I think this has the update.
Well,
it?
and I would say that their reasons were not completely, they were legitimate reasons. And so,
They are legitimate reasons.
And so she found that she found a reasonable way to still take care of what they needed to and
Right.
still do what she needed to. So this was kind of a compromise more than anything else. I mean, this is the
Yes.
way that things are supposed to work.
Right. In the end, they said, okay, we can adjust it. We can find something that will work, fit within our guidelines still, and allow you to stay true to your religious beliefs. So, I thought it was just a great story in regards to something like that because, it shows progress, and progress is always a good thing.
Yep.
I'm going to disagree.
Oh, you are? Okay, give it to us straight.
Go for it.
And this is like the inner, conspiracy theory person that's still somewhere beneath all this skepticism and stuff like
Nice.
that. I don't like this.
Okay.
And I don't have really great reasons for it. A lot of it is conjecture. One, I think this kind of stuff is silly on the point of why are we taking this shit seriously at all? Your 1,500-year-old book says you shouldn't wear sleeveless stuff when you go out to weightlift. Give me a fucking break. I mean,
Okay.
it's not fitting into the traditional religious upbringing that they want to pretend still is relevant in 21st century. So I disagree with it on that part.
Okay, I understand where you're coming from on here. I mean, but I think that we still need to be respectful of other people's religions. And I know that this is tough, but we can't just sit around and just say, hey, it's a 15-year-old book, so it doesn't matter anymore. It matters to this person. It matters to her enough that
And
she needs to maintain
being
it.
true to it.
Yeah.
She's being true to the pieces she would like to be true to. Because quite frankly, that book boils down to if she's not barefoot and pregnant, she's doing it wrong.
Okay, you're
And
right.
I'm having a very major, and I realize that, like I said, I'm not claiming rationality here, and I realize I sound like one of the Neanderthals from the earlier article, but she's not doing it. It's a lot like when you hear people who want to practice the Sabbath and not use electricity and stuff like that. So they make up these stupid-ass gadgets that keep the oven on without doing any work so that they can cook and do all the stuff they want to do in 21st century America without, quote-unquote, disobeying the law. But they're disobeying all of the law's implications, and they've got these little get-around things as if God was some idiot who would be like, I didn't see that. All right, come on in.
Let me see.
You got me.
Let me see if I can
don't
break this down a
understand
little
why
bit more. I mean, I see what you're saying. She's cherry picking. And if she's not, well, hold on. If she wants to be true to her religion, she should be at home and pregnant. The fact that she's going out and trying to do a job or to compete in such a way that is generally considered a masculine thing to do, if she's going to do that anyway, why can't she just give up the other piece of the religion? So she's compartmentalizing what she has to wear with what her home duties are. And I think that this is also kind of a feminist argument. Would you agree with that, Kim?
I'm going to throw something else out here real quick before you respond on that. Let me throw something else out here. Is it possible that by competing in her religious garb and still doing this, she's being an example to other young Muslim women, and thereby being an agent of change?
It's a good point, and it's certainly one method of going about the change. I would think just casting off all the shackles and not keeping half of them would be a better way, but I'm a very progressive American woman,
but that's
so
not the way it happens.
But if she won't wear the traditional garb, then nobody will look at her with respect.
Huh.
Yeah,
Whereas
I don't know how you deconstruct all of this.
I'm going to say that this is ridiculous, and that if Muslim women want to come out and show other Muslim women that their religion is wrong, that they need to do what the Turkish Muslim did and pose naked in German Playboy.
I got no problem with that.
Yeah, well.
But still, Kim, to me, this is a step in the right direction. She's out there. She's showing that she's not a stereotypical Muslim woman. I mean, seriously, do you think she's going to have a husband that's going to beat her? She can probably kick most guys' ass without trying. Whatever husband she sells
She got into it because she was learning Taekwondo. So.
Yeah, and I'm sure she could kick my ass too. Don't get me wrong.
I'm looking at the image of her, and her arms are not that big, which means that she's got to be wiry as hell.
Yeah, but okay, so I've got the problem with the cherry picking, but I'll allow it. I mean, again, I'm not really trying to keep this particular woman or anybody down. But I do think I think someone should point out the cherry picking stuff because it's rampant. But my second thing that kind of concerns me is we already compromise on a lot of things for religion. And this is a very separate subject, but I think it has a similar tone to it. For example, in Europe now, and I don't know if it's true in the U.S. or not, all of the food, all of meat is prepared, I think it's called hajid, or I probably am saying it wrong. But there's basically, it's a lot like kosher. It's all about how you prepare an animal for slaughter in order to harvest the meat. And there's an Islamic specific way of doing it that, quite frankly, unsurprising, is very barbaric. It basically insists that the creature is alive and conscious when you slit its throat and stuff like that. In Europe, apparently, they have taken to all of the meat that you buy in any supermarket is killed this way. Because, one, they don't want to bring up the fact that, like, if they separated it out, it would be more expensive for everybody and it would cause this huge backlash because people would be conscious of the fact that it's going on. They've done this to compromise with this religion again, just like we're compromising here on the dress. And it's small ways, but again, I guess I keep coming back to why are we compromising with these people at all?
Well, that sounds more like capitalism, though. It's like the companies that are doing the media say, hey, listen, if we want the business, we have to do it this way. So your meat example to me is not necessarily compromise. It's these companies that say, hey, listen, I want that extra money, and the cheapest way I can get that extra money is to do things this way.
I mean, I think if we looked into this more, and maybe this would be a full article and research project for another episode, I don't think it's extremely a money-making kind of thing. I think this is a social compromise. This is a matter of it is too much trouble to go and say you shouldn't be slaughtering animals like this. It's making a moral objection to the way they slaughter animals and just accepting it because
I make a distinction there because the way that they're saying to slaughter these animals is actually inhumane. And this is to me not inhumane.
Yeah.
And so I would make a distinction there because of that.
I'll give you that point, but it's still compromising with a religion for no particular reason. In my opinion, why should we change the rules for your religion? Your religion is a choice. Your religion is, in this case, all of these clothing things, again, in the bigger picture, are meant to keep women down. So why are we compromising with something that we find morally reprehensible in the ultimate?
And that's where I come back and say, this is
reprehensible to go ahead and treat a woman like, wear this sack over you so that men are not tempted to rape you all the time? Or why compromise with that? Why don't we stand up and say, you know what? Sorry, you seem like a decent person. I'm sorry you can't compete, but we're not changing the rules for you. Because when we change this rule for her in what you guys are all kind of saying, and I don't totally disagree with you, it's a fairly irrelevant way. I mean, why not? Let her wear what she wants. That's great. We're getting her involved. We're showing her things.
That's almost getting close to a slippery.
Any compromise is giving an inch, and you know these people. They get inches, they take miles.
Yeah, I know, but you're making a slippery slope argument here.
Well,
I might be.
Yeah.
The way that we slaughter cattle in the U.S. is not that much more humane.
It's gotten much better.
Yeah, but.
Well, and again, I don't want to get off on a whole, animal rights kind of thing here, because that is a little bit more complicated. But I don't know. Where do you cross the line between?
Well, I think you can find better examples than the meat thing. To me, the meat thing is consumerism. That's like kosher food. There are companies that make kosher food, and they're not going to worry about making non-kosher food, because if they make it kosher, just release it all kosher, and the people that want kosher will buy it, and the people that don't care are still going to buy it. It's making money. So to me,
we're being ignorant and compromising with some crazy-ass old-time religion that just doesn't.
I think you can find better examples, though, out there than what I consider just be companies trying to make money.
Okay,
you know what?
I'll take that off the plate here, if you will.
I really think that there's another piece here that we're missing, and that the men are very in support of this, and we have the woman, and unfortunately we only have one, who is making a feminist argument here, and I see your point, and I think there's also a piece here where I don't swim in that pool, and so I don't quite completely I don't always understand it. Do you understand what I'm saying there?
Right. And in which case, I want to present Kimberly as a stepping stone here. I mean, this is a woman who, like I said, she's breaking the mold. She's probably an inspiration for others. If they see her, that might get the next generation to say, hey, maybe, why are we wearing these clothes? And to some extent, the fact that she's being so open about being a Muslim woman doing this quite likely can inspire the future generations to go in the direction you'd like to see them go.
Exactly.
But changes like that do not happen like that. She's not going to give everything up. She's already breaking stereotype, and that's probably actually an incredible thing for her alone. I wouldn't be surprised if she's gone through some trials just to get to the point where she's at.
The other point here is that, do any of us really care about weightlifting? I don't give a crap what happens in weightlifting. And this is another problem with this story, is that because I have no emotional attachment to weightlifting, when they make a change like this, it does not affect me in any sort of personal way. Where if this was something where people were changing something that was more personal to me, I might have a different reaction. A reaction more like, listen, this has been the rules. If you want to participate, these are the rules. If you don't want to participate, then go away.
Weightlifting is not a sport, according to Carlin.
It's not yes, because there's no.
It's not. It's not a sport because you can't bet on it.
Oh, I bet you can bet on it. Why couldn't you?
When was the last time you went out and made a fucking weightlifting bet?
Listen, you go in Nevada, you can, if you go to Vegas, you can bet on anything. I'll bet that you can, I'll bet that you can bet on weightlifting.
Gymnastics is not a sport.
See, I just made a bet on weightlifting.
Gymnastics is not a sport because Romanians are good at it.
Oh, okay.
Hey, George Carlin's rules. I'm going with it.
Okay. Well, but here's the thing: is that I really think that this might be different if it was something that if it was about bowling. Maybe I would feel differently because I have a personal attachment to that activity, and maybe if this was an activity that I had that I cared more about, I would feel differently, and I'll bet you I would.
Yeah, there's a good chance of that.
I hear you. And like I said, I'm no weightlifter either. I just don't like this insidious compromise with irrationality. And that's what
Well-
I feel this is. We are compromising as rational people who have reasons for our rules in order to accommodate a completely irrational 1,500-year-old
Okay.
idea that, in my opinion, leads directly to the subjugation of
But
women.
can't we make the same argument that the weightlifting rules originally were ridiculous? That they were just there to show off more skin?
I hear what you're saying. I mean, like I said, and it comes back to the same argument again. I think a bigger scope argument of your moderates versus your extremists and stuff. We need to give a pass to the moderates because they're not doing as much harm as the extremists. And this is certainly a moderate issue.
Yeah.
But my opinion is every time, again, and you're right that it's a slippery scope and you're right to point it out to me. But man, we give inches all over the place and I don't think we always know what the consequences of them are.
And to be fair, this is what Sam Harris is talking about is giving in. But when we give in to the moderates like this, that we actually are empowering them to continue to take these things away from us.
I really do feel he's absolutely correct on that. And I know that's a very extremist position.
It is very extreme, yeah.
On its own.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't want to be associated with it, but I was surprised how bothered I was by it because the implications seemed very obvious to me. And like I said, I mean, I'm all for women's rights. I'm all for this chick doing what she wants to do and stuff. But changing the world in order, I don't like it.
I understand. You know, I'm
That's
really
wrong.
glad that you were bothered by it because none of the rest of us were.
Obviously.
You're
Right?
feisty tonight, Kim.
No, I think
I-
I think that's great because now I'm looking at this differently now after this conversation, and now I'm more conflicted than when we started. I have
I've
less.
done
I
my
have less
job,
answer.
man.
I have
I'm
way
done.
more
Good night,
answer.
folks. You've
Exactly.
been great if you're wait staff.
No, but that's the problem with all of these is that the more you examine them and the more you look into them, the more you find out that it's much more gray and that there are no one true, solution that's going to fit everybody. So the more you analyze this, the harder it is to make a decision.
Well, and the fact that we do see it as gray shows that we are not extremists because extremists see everything in black and white.
Yeah. All right.
And cut about colors of explosions.
Yep.
All right. What do we got here? Oh, the shipwreck.
Yep. And you can always guarantee that if there's a shipwreck story out there, I'll find it.
Yes.
I don't know why. All right. Basically,
I know why. And it goes back to your dad's connection with the Midway and your obsession with boats.
It's possible. Anyway, this Canadian schooner was wrecked in 1906, and they found it at the bottom of Lake Ontario in remarkably good condition because of the low oxygen down where it's at. It's about 200 to 300 feet down. It looks like it hit bow first because the bowsprit is broken off. That's the spar on the front of the ship that it's got a sail attached to it, but actually I don't know what it's for. But that the bowsprit is broken off, but its masts are still sticking up 100 feet upward from the bottom of the lake, and the rigging is gone, but there's still coils of rope and cables on the deck, and they can also see the winch that was added on the deck in probably the early 1900s. What they're thinking is what happened was that the bilge pump might have failed, or just simply wasn't strong enough for all the water that was taking on, and it just simply went down. The people who discovered this they found more than 20 wrecks in the Great Lakes and about 180 others in various other different locations. So.
All right. Very cool.
Yeah, I just thought it was a neat article.
Yeah, and it's interesting to read how well preserved it was. You read through it. It sounds like it was in great shape still, considering it's been underwater for 100 years.
Well, it has a lot to do with the location, probably.
Oh,
Yeah, well, that's what it said.
Yeah.
There was, until 15 years ago, there was nothing there to cause any damage to it.
Well, and also there's not that much, until just a few years ago, there was not much they could do to actually explore that deep in that cold of a location either.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Alrighty.
So there's some good science in it, and talking about how it was preserved and what was responsible for the preservation of it. So it was interesting to read.
All right. Kimberly wants to talk about the bombings in Norway.
Yeah, I put one article in here. There's obviously a couple of million out there now.
Yeah, there's a lot. Yeah.
and I guess everybody's heard about it, that there was I guess it's still a developing story. We don't know if it was just one guy or if he had a kind of a little conspiracy going. But a bomb was, I guess, placed in a building that killed about 7 people. And then there was a mass shooting. I mean, it sounds insane what happened. Walked in apparently dressed as a cop and just opened fire on a bunch of kids who were at some kind of a political camp. And I heard that the number has come down. At one point they were reporting 93 dead. I think they're now at 73 dead. And of course, in the aftermath of such a horrible thing going on, it's easy to understand how the statistics and stuff can get blown out of proportion, because you can count things twice and people are missing and you're assumed dead. And so I'm sure that'll get kind of remedied here soon. And it's not like 73 dead is somehow, oh, that's not too big a deal. It's not 93. It's still pretty horrible what happened.
Right.
So obviously we're gonna see more develop, and we're gonna learn more about what happened here. But what I thought was really interesting, as this went on, was when the bomb first went off and when the word first came down that these kids were shot, everyone's immediate reaction was, this must have been a fundamentalist Islamic attack, some kind of Al-Qaeda or some sort of organization doing it in the name of Islam, or in the name of fundamentalism. And I just thought that was a really interesting reaction, that's kind of where all of our brains immediately go to. And I guess I just wanted to bring it up and maybe have a discussion about, what it really does mean, the state of European immigration. People talk about this a lot.
Yeah.
I wish I could find the article again. I had read an article going over the terrorist attacks in Europe over like last decade. 99% of terrorist attacks in Europe are not by Muslims. Only 1% of terrorist attacks in Europe have been Muslims.
That's interesting because, a lot of those, there used to be a lot of attacks from the IRA, the
Irish Republican Army.
Right. And they came out and said, and they stopped doing it. They finally realized that just how detrimental it was to their cause, and they came out against these types of bombings.
Yeah. I don't know that it's all done there, but you're absolutely right. Then is it the Basque in Spain are responsible for a lot?
Yeah, and this was a Christian fundamentalist, they're saying.
Yeah, and who has basically come out that his motives was to get people to go against the Muslims.
Right.
It was to create anti-Muslim ideas out there.
See, and did God tell him to do it? I mean, who?
It's really interesting. He apparently has some kind of a 1,500-page manifesto of insanity out there. And I've read a couple of excerpts from it. He's very obviously mentally challenged. He's got something going on, because from what I've read, he's got a lot of points where he calls himself an atheist. He says he doesn't believe in anything, and then goes on to say that he knows that God will be with him during these trying times, and that that Jesus will be the source of his strength. So, he's not very good at atheism, if that's what he does identify as. But it's not really totally clear that it's a Christian thing that brought this on either. It's kind of all over the place.
This article had referred to him several times as a Christian fundamentalist.
Mm-hmm.
But he's not really a Christian fundamentalist. What he is he's a nut job.
Well, that's true.
Yeah. It's a lot of developing stuff, but it does kind of go back and forth. And like I said, it seems like it's going to be taken by whoever wants to take it in whatever way they want to take it.
Why doesn't God just ever tell these people to shit in the salad bar?
This is not an organization, though. This is the lone nut. You could just easily say Ted Kaczynski was for a cause, when really all it was lone nut.
Yeah. The shit in salad bar is another George Carlin quote.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
I kind of figured it was.
So, anyway, like I said, it's a very tragic thing that just happened. I don't think we've seen the last of the implications of this, and everyone's trying to spin it their own way. And yeah, I just thought it was really, really interesting that, again, the first thought that seemed to go through all the papers and blogs and stuff like that was, we've been attacked by the fundamentalists again. Yeah. And then when they found out that it was a blonde-haired, blue-eyed guy, they're just like, blend
in anywhere. The idea is that, hey, we got to do some racial stereotyping in order to keep the terrorists from getting us are completely blown out of proportion here.
You know, if you take all the spin out of this, what you have is some guy killed a whole bunch of people.
Yep.
I mean, and ultimately that's all that you really have, is you have one guy, no matter what he says his motivations were, who went out and killed a bunch of people. It doesn't matter.
He's not a terrorist, he's a spree killer.
It doesn't even, well, I don't know, you could call this terrorism. He was terrorizing people.
Yeah.
So,
but
he
was a spree killer.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter the cause. You have one guy who did a terrible thing. And people are going to try and spin this all sorts of ways. They already are. He's a Christian fundamentalist. He's an atheist. He's this, he's that. No, he's one guy. I don't know.
Well, and that's what most of it comes down to. You know, even the bigger terrorist actions, it's a handful of guys that are doing it. It's not a race. It's not this huge group of people. It's
but in the case of the larger terrorist actions, it's a small handful of people who've been put into it by a group that they are with. Right. They've been supported into doing it. I'm not going to say brainwashed but they've been essentially given all the rhetoric that says you will be blessed if you do this. 72 virgins and a good place in heaven with a nice view. But they're doing it because of a group, not because they're a lone nut job.
In the end, it's a handful of nut jobs doing it instead of just one.
You know what?
I can't support the view that people who are, if they're driven to it by a group, it's social pressure.
Well,
it's not being a nut job.
Ultimately, yeah.
Most people like him. There's some sort of social pressure.
It doesn't matter whether he's psychotic or not.
Right.
He did a terrible thing. And
that is the bottom line. And it's
And you can't associate him with anybody else realistically. He may associate himself with another group, but you have to disconnect him from that group because he's a minority in whatever group he associates him with. Not all Christian fundamentalists are going out and bombing people and trying to blame it on Muslims. I mean it is a minority view but it will start people talking. And by the time, in 1 year, it's going to be the Christian fundamentalist who was acting on behalf of Muslims or something. I mean, it's going to be distorted, and the fact of the matter is that one guy who did a terrible thing is not how this is going to be looked at in the long term. I just wonder in a year how people are going to be looking at this event.
Yeah, we'll have to see how it rolls out.
Yeah.
And like you say, and there is some word, again, I haven't seen anything definitive yet, that there may be a little bit of a conspiracy here. So a little bit more than a just one guy thing. Apparently early reports suggested that there was a second shooter on the island, but they didn't catch him, I guess, immediately. But again, either way, I don't think we're going to find, to your point of view, that there's, the Pope is just like, and you go out on Saturday and here's your agenda. I don't think we're going to find something like that.
Right, and that's the thing. Even with 9/11, it was a small minority of Muslims who did that. But what did we do? Muslims bombed the Trade Center, the towers. Not a small minority of fundamentalists who were acting on their own bombed those towers. We blame the whole group. And that's what bothers me about this, and it's not going to happen because even if he is a Christian fundamentalist, in this country, we're not going to blame the whole group. But in Iran and Iraq, in Muslim countries, they will blame all Christian fundamentalists for this.
Yep.
Yeah. And what's I think another interesting part of the whole thing is that, just the societal differences. Because a lot of people are comparing this to the Oklahoma City bombings, because it was a similar type of bomb on a government building. It still seems like Americans and Europeans, when they bomb something, they intend to survive it, and this guy did. Whereas,
right.
When you do have those rogue fundamentalists from other countries, that's not part of the equation. And again, I think that's just an interesting. I don't know what it all means.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you what exactly that points to, but
I can
just
tell
very
you,
interesting.
Norway is the last place that I would have expected this to happen. but I shouldn't feel that way because anywhere that there are people, these kinds of things can happen.
Right.
Right.
Everyone's absolutely capable of these
Yeah.
atrocities.
Right, exactly. But I'm surprised that it's Norway, even though I shouldn't be.
It's not something you would have expected.
No, it's not. But anywhere that there are people, these things can happen.
It's interesting.
And it's
My mind made the McVeigh connection too.
Mhm.
Sure.
Yeah, it sounds very similar.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. And why shouldn't it? There's no reason that you shouldn't make that connection. It was a lone guy who, and maybe a conspiracy, maybe there's more to it.
McVeigh was a pair of guys,
Right.
and there may have been a larger conspiracy, but there was two of them that got caught essentially.
At least two, yeah.
Well, and there was
And like I said, this will probably be similar. There'll probably be a group of people who psyched each other up into doing something absolutely
Right.
horrendous.
and there'll
like
be a
this.
group of people who thinks that it really wasn't him and that it was the government that did it, and they're
Right.
just pinning it on him. And that happened with McVeigh too. There was a group of people who believed that he couldn't have done it. There's no possible way. He's being pinned on this. He's the scapegoat. He's the fall guy. And you know, the problem with those arguments is they make them and there's no evidence for them. You can't outright say, well, that's not true, right? You have to say, well, is that plausible? Yeah, I suppose that is plausible. It's very low on my plausibility scale, but I can't rule it out.
It's not very high on plausibility because the simplest solution is that it was him.
Right. Yeah.
All right, well, we shouldn't end on that kind of a downer
No,
note.
jeez.
Mac, tell us something funny.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I don't know. We could at least three of us have seen Captain America.
Oh, yes. Captain America
no,
was good. No spoilers?
Course,
Let's see,
has not.
Oh.
Marvel movies keep in the theater till after the credits. You get rewarded.
I'm going to say
Well,
this.
It's the same with all the
It-
movies. And
It was I don't know that it was the best comic book movie that's come out. I would say that as far as comic book genre goes, that Hellboy really captured that for me. But I would say that this was a better movie all in all, that this was just a plain good movie.
It was. It was an outstandingly good movie.
How about ending on some good news?
Okay.
My brother posted this earlier, so I haven't checked it out for accuracy, but apparently deaths from chickenpox have dropped 97% in adolescents and children since the use of vaccine began in 1995.
Outstanding.
Yay!
That's good news.
Vaccines! Yay!
That's not surprising, actually. I find that very believable.
Yeah, what did Meryl Dory had to say about it?
Unfortunately, Eric, when you mentioned that, we just lost Jenny McCarthy as a listener.
Oh,
Oh, man. Now we're down to one listener again. All right. Well, remember, go to the Atheists for Humanity and donate generously and support atheists donating, I guess.
Yep.
Next
we haven't
week-
pushed our website or anything for a while, so amateurskeptics.com. Check us out there.
That's
We
right.
also have a Facebook page for Amateur Skeptics.
And-
We're everywhere.
Yep. And Kimberly and I for sure will be at Ask an Atheist next Saturday.
Yep,
Yeah,
so
well,
go to...
come along, sign your MP3.
Yeah, we'll sign your. I sign breasts.
So go to Atheists, Ask an Atheist, go there for God's sake.
All right. Say goodnight, everybody.
Good night,
Good
everybody.
All right.
Good
Have an
night.
evening. Good evening. Thanks for listening to the Amateur Skeptics Podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Amateur Skeptics Podcast. For more information about the Amateur Skeptics, go to amateurskeptics.com. To send us feedback, suggestions, or big flaming insults, feel free to contact us at WTF@amateurskeptics.com. Other contact information can be found on our website.
You can leave a voicemail for the Amateur Skeptics Podcast at 720-295-7785. Music for this podcast was provided by OFM. To find out more about OFM, go to myspace.com/OFMHQ. This podcast is released under a Creative Commons, No Derivatives 3.5 license. Thank you for listening to the Amateur Skeptics Podcast.
Amateur Skeptics website, Facebook, and podcast album art is provided by and copyright Shadow Knight Digital Portraiture. Larger prints or custom pieces are available upon request.